Number 10. Grand Canyon UFO Crash Site. In recent years, this image of what looks like a crashed spaceship has appeared online, along with stories about a team of experts discovering at a crash site in the Grand Canyon. The reports, which seem to come mostly from obscure pseudoscience websites rather than trusted news sources, claim that the UFO crashed 4,000 years ago, but was only recently discovered. According to one tale, the vehicle was made of an unknown metallic substance that emitted low levels of radiation. Its discoverers allegedly moved it to a secure, top-secret location. The stories about the UFO are frustratingly vague, with one Histeco.com article stating that the craft was of a decent size and that it could carry about 20 individuals of a certain height. It references a so-called expert named Dr. Henry Lomont. The interior supposedly contained old food, drinks, and machines that resembled oxygen tanks. But we were unable to find any credentials for an astronomer named Henry Lomont or any information from trusted sources about the crashed UFO. So, did it really exist? What do you think? Number 9. Peculiar Prehistoric Predator. Around 506 million years ago, during the Cambrian period, a strange sea creature whose body resembled a spaceship lived in the ocean in what is now Canada. Nicknamed the Mothership, Titanosaurus gaynensis fossils were recently discovered in the Canadian Rockies, the last place one might expect to find an ocean. But back when the creature existed, global temperatures were much higher. Consequently, sea levels were also higher, and much of North America was covered in water. The name Titanosaurus, which means Titanic helmet, refers to the creature's hard shell, which made up about 2/3 of its body. At just 20 inches long, it wasn't very big by modern standards, but it was one of the world's largest predators at a time when most other animals were smaller than a person's thumbnail, according to paleontologist and lead study author Bernard Caron, who spoke with Reuters. Caron described the creature as a giant swimming head with a disproportionately small body. It had a circular mouth filled with triangular tooth-like structures, 2 claws, which it used for catching prey, and gills and flaps for swimming. The strange species likely fed on worms and other small prey that were buried in the sea floor. It's so bizarre looking that even the scientists who found it were perplexed and unsure of exactly what kind of animal it was. Number 8. A UFO over Canada. On July 30th of this year, 2 pilots, one flying a commercial aircraft and another flying a military plane, reported seeing a bright green UFO over the Gulf of St. Lawrence off Canada's east coast. Both witnesses claimed that they saw the flying object for just a few seconds before it disappeared into the clouds. Thankfully, the incident did not affect either flight's operations. Aviation and shipping researcher Stephen Watkins examined the data from the flights and noticed that the military aircraft climbed 1,000 feet at the time of the sighting, perhaps to avoid colliding with the strange object. Watkins conceded that what looked like a UFO may have been a meteor. The timing matches up with the early stage of the annual Perseid meteor shower. Unlike the US, the Canadian government does not keep records of alleged UFO sightings, but there's no shortage of these incidents, and some civilians have collected tens of thousands of pages of data. Earlier this year, the Pentagon released a report on 140 UFO sightings. It concluded that most of the time, people probably did see an actual object, but there's no evidence pointing towards the incidents having anything to do with aliens. Number 7. A "what is this" star. Earlier this year, scientists announced the discovery of a star so peculiar, they hesitated to put a name on it, instead categorizing it as a "what is this" or WIT object. Located over 25,000 light-years from Earth, in the heart of the Milky Way, the star appeared to blink on and off right before the researchers' eyes. Experts have only witnessed this phenomenon twice, and they don't know what causes it. They know of 5 objects with properties indicating that they experienced the phenomenon. The most recently observed star, known simply as VVV-WIT-08, is about 100 times bigger than the Sun. It's periodically blocked by a small object with an opaque disk, and scientists don't know what that object is. A gigantic star called Epsilon Aurigae is another star that blinks. In this case, a dust cloud passes by every 27 years, causing the star to dim. scientists solved the mystery of these dimming periods fairly recently, in 2018. They believe that there are many more space objects that exhibit similar displays, and their next step is to determine what the companion objects are that cause it to happen. What do you think causes these stars to blink? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Unusual tree species. While working in Peru's Manu National Park in 1973, a botanist stumbled upon a bizarre tree that reaches up to 20 feet tall and grows tiny orange paper lantern-shaped fruit. Dr. Robin Foster, who discovered the tree, noticed that it had properties of plants from several different families. This was surprising, since she could usually categorize a plant just by looking at it. Samples from the specimen sat unidentified at the Field Museum in Chicago for nearly 50 years. Finally, in 2015, a team of botanists received enough funding to take a closer look at it. They attempted to do genetic testing on it, but the DNA was too broken down to get the results they needed. Researchers contacted Manu National Park scientist Patricia Alvarez Loaiza and described the tree to her. She tracked down a live specimen and took samples for DNA analysis. The results classified the tree as coming from the Picramniaceae family. But it looked so different from its relatives, the team second-guessed the results and sent the samples to Wade Thomas, an expert in the Picramniaceae family at New York Botanical Garden. He told Popular Science that at first, he too thought that the other researchers were mistaken, but he did some digging and concluded that they were right. Dubbed Enigmano alvarezii, it was named as a new species and genus. Thomas pointed out that in our current era of rapidly decreasing biodiversity, it's more important than ever for scientists to catalog new species. After all, knowing what a plant is and where it can be found are the first steps to conserving it. Number 5. Strange solar object. In 2005, scientists spotted an object whirring through space like an asteroid, yet it had the physical characteristics of a comet. While asteroids tend not to change in appearance, the object, dubbed 2005 QN173, sheds dust while it travels and has a long, thin tail. These traits indicate that it's covered in ice that vaporizes into space. It's located in the outer reaches of our solar system's asteroid belt, completing a full orbit roughly every 5 years. Thanks to their highly elliptical orbit, comets spend most of the time far enough away from the Sun to remain frozen. They only come near the Sun and Earth for short periods at a time, which is when their tails appear, courtesy of sublimation. This process turns solid ice directly into a gas, with no liquid phase in between. Objects in the asteroid belt, on the other hand, are typically inactive at all times. The discovery blurs the lines between asteroids and comets, two things that scientists previously thought of as two separate, distinct objects. 2005 QN173 is one of just 8 objects in the asteroid belt that researchers have observed in an active state multiple times, and it's one of 20 suspected main belt comets, as they've come to be called. It has an unusually narrow tail, which means the dust is flowing from it at extremely slow speeds and with a weak flow. But dust wouldn't normally be able to escape at such a slow pace, suggesting that another force is at play. Lead research author Henry Say explained that the object's nucleus could be spinning at a really high rate, causing the dust to flow more than it normally would. Scientists will get another chance to observe 2005 QN173 up close in February 2026, when it will be visible from the southern hemisphere and close enough to the Sun to become active again. Number 4. Premature male babies age faster. It's a well-known fact that premature babies are at a higher risk of serious health problems than babies born at a normal weight. But scientists recently found that some preemies also age faster later in life. As part of a decades-long study on extremely low birth weight (ELBW) babies who were born at 2.2 pounds or less, a team of researchers determined that by the time they reach their 30s, ELBW males are genetically around 4.6 years older than men of the same age who had a healthy birth weight. The study focused on biological age, meaning the genes of ELBW males display similar chemical changes to the genes of someone older than them. For some reason, this doesn't happen with ELBW females. These findings corroborate the results of previous studies, which indicate that premature males are more sensitive than premature females to prenatal stress. and the reasons for this are entirely unclear. But the research undoubtedly shows that being born prematurely can play an important role in aging. Neuroscientist Ryan van Lieshout pointed out the results emphasize the need to closely monitor the health of ELBW males throughout their lives and to educate them on taking care of themselves to promote healthy aging. In the meantime, experts are trying to better understand why ELBW males age differently and what can be done about it. Number 3. Iapetus. Saturn has 82 moons, more than any other planet in our solar system. In 1671, Iapetus was the second moon to be discovered orbiting Saturn, courtesy of Italian astronomer Giovanni Cassini. That was a long time ago, but Iapetus has stuck in scientists' minds ever since because it has several properties that they can't quite explain. For one, it went missing for decades. Cassini observed Iapetus on the western side of Saturn. When he went to look for it on the eastern side of the planet later in its orbit, it was gone. Armed with a new telescope, Cassini finally spotted the moon again in 1705 on the eastern side of Saturn. It was much fainter than it had looked on the western side. Iapetus is the outermost and the third largest of Saturn's 8 most significant moons. 7 of these moons orbit within 1.6 degrees of the planet's orbiting plane. Iapetus, on the other hand, is tilted at 15.5 degrees compared to the rest of the Saturnian system. This makes no sense, because Iapetus is similar in composition to the planet's other prominent moons, and its orbit appears to be completely normal. What's even weirder is that Iapetus is shaped like a space object that completes a rotation every 16 hours, but it takes 79 days for the moon to rotate once. Iapetus also has a ridge on its equator that spans nearly its entire diameter. The ridge is segmented and appears to break into 3 parallel ridges at certain points, and nothing quite like it has been seen in any other space object. 350 years after Cassini made these observations, scientists are still trying to explain the weird features of Iapetus, and they've repeatedly come up empty-handed. Number 2. Perplexing Antarctic Sponges. While drilling nearly 3,000 feet into the ice on Antarctica's Filcher-Ronne ice shelf earlier this year, a team of geologists spotted a collection of sponges and other life forms attached to the side of a rock. These stationary creatures were found living in pitch darkness and rigid sub-zero temperatures. Scientists were perplexed how anything could live in such a harsh environment where there's no sunlight and no obvious food sources. Thanks to advanced technology, experts are just now starting to explore beneath the ice shelves, which constitute some of the least studied habitats on Earth. British Antarctic Survey scientist Hugh Griffiths told CNN that the total area humans have seen below the ice shelves amounts to roughly the size of a tennis court. He further explained that the creatures found on the rock must be highly specialized for surviving in the environment they live in, because there's a good chance that they go without food for long periods of time. Some of them could be new species of creatures that already live in Antarctica. Learning from these hardy specimens could prove useful for helping scientists understand how they withstand their inhospitable habitat. In order to do so, scientists will have to gain better access to them and do more research on what goes on deep beneath the ice. As Griffiths put it, there is a whole world that we know nothing about. There is life on Earth that isn't playing by the rules that biologists understand. Number 1. Mysterious DNA. Deep in the mud of the California wetlands, scientists have found an unusually large DNA structure made up of massive strings of DNA. Known as a Borg, it likely belongs to a single-celled organism. It carries numerous genes that are unknown to science, and experts don't exactly know what they do. Geomicrobiologist Gillian Banfield and her colleagues were digging for DNA fragments that are involved in the carbon cycle when they unexpectedly found the Borg. In a recent study, the team wrote that they believe the structures are a type of extra chromosomal element, meaning they store extra DNA outside their chromosomes. ECEs often come with genetic advantages that give them capabilities beyond essential functions, such as antibiotic resistance. Borgs possess a fascinating combination of features, and roughly 80% of their DNA performs unknown functions, according to lead study author Bassem El-Shayeb. The remaining 20% of material consists of genes that help to boost their host capabilities, like metabolizing methane. The Borg's ability to efficiently metabolize methane means they could potentially come in handy for removing greenhouse gases from the environment. They may also be able to improve protein production and boost the nitrogen fixation process, which turns nitrogen into compounds that help crops grow. Thanks for watching. What's the strangest thing you have ever discovered? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye!